Ross O'Brien with the Economist Corporate Network in Hong Kong. We've just wrapped up Eurogeddon, our look at risks and what-if scenarios into 2013. And I'm here with Ben Wootliff of Control Risk. We were talking at length, but perhaps disproportionate to the probability about the potential for conflict in the South China Sea. Mm-hmm. The Spratlys do seem to be this constant dashboard mm-hmm. light blinking on onto, if not red, definitely amber. Mm-hmm. What do you think is the likelihood of something significant happening in the Spratlys in, say, well, in the foreseeable future?
The foreseeable future. That's a very long way away. Yes. Yes. I think it's, just to clarify, I think it's the South China Sea as well as the East China Sea.
Okay.
For us, that's been a both. This is a unified issue.
Okay.
The issue is not just about oil, though. It's about China's perception of itself in the world. It's a strategic issue for China, mm-hmm. trying to secure its supply lines, supply routes, and understand its overall strategic position in the region.
Right.
I don't think anybody wants to go to have a significant conflict over this.
Right.
This isn't the desire of the Chinese government nor of the governments involved there.
Right.
But of course, I think as we discussed, the danger is of something spinning out of control there.
Right. And you specifically cited the lack of, well, perhaps not lack of control mechanisms, but the lack of experience with controlling a multifaceted navy being something that China, there was a skill set that China didn't possess, and that perhaps amplified the risks somewhat.
Yeah, I think it amplifies the risks of something going wrong.
Okay.
Of a situation escalating perhaps beyond what the parties involved in that situation particularly want to do.
Right. And you're very firm on this not being about resources. You see the underlying oil and gas as not being the prize that everyone's gunning for, but it is this notion of China's place in the world and its strategic positioning of supply lines.
I think the oil is an issue. I don't think we should totally discount that.
Okay.
And I think you made the point as access to oil becomes more difficult, then the oil issue increases in importance.
Right.
But I think there is a broader strategic issue at stake here.
Okay.
I think if it was just an oil issue, it might be easy to resolve in certain ways.
Okay, and that's a fair point. Now on to the other risk that has an oil mm-hmm. component, if you will, Iran. We've seen potentially the impact of sanctions finally tipping the needle mm-hmm. with Iranian mm-hmm. geopolitical concerns. Mm-hmm. The rial's dropped in value 80% this year. Mm-hmm. What is the likelihood that this and general pressure from the global community is pushing Iran back up against that purported red line that Benjamin Netanyahu wants so desperately to be established?
I think it's the question of whether are we going to see conflict over Iran in the short term?
Yes.
I think the chances are still relatively low.
Right.
We don't necessarily see it as an absolute likelihood.
Yeah.
What isn't necessarily the case is that this conflict will escalate also more widely across the region.
Right, and you said specifically that you didn't necessarily see a strategic strike having a knock-on effect of creating more of a shooting conflict in the Straits of Hormuz.
I don't think it's a given.
Okay.
I don't think you can assume that Iran has the capability or even necessarily the complete desire to block the Straits of Hormuz.
Right.
And I don't think it's necessarily a given that all the other actors in the region will get involved.
Right. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but you actually had some very positive thoughts about the short-term outlook and the willingness of Iran to perhaps come to the negotiating table, perhaps after the U.S. elections?
I think there is more of a chance
Yeah.
that Iran could come to the negotiating table after the US elections. I think the issue with Iran over the longer term has always been that Iran wants to be seen as a power, a significant power in the region.
Right.
Wants to have that level of representation.
Right.
And I think if that can be established, perhaps after the elections, then there might be a more positive outcome on this.
And within Asia Pacific, where you have players like China and Iran, and perhaps throw in India or Indonesia, we have a collection of large emerging countries that essentially want, it seems to me, more geopolitical respect. Does this significantly change your outlook on geopolitical tension in the region next year over years past, or are these events that have long been in play and are, as you were suggesting, priced into the market already?
I think these are events which have long been into play.
Right.
I think over the next year, what you'll have a resolution of the US political situation.
Mm-hmm.
You'll also have a resolution of the Chinese political situation.
Right.
And that may help actually calm situations down. There may be a sigh of relief once all these hurdles have been hurdled, as it were.
Right. So let's hope that they are hurdled, and that January 2013 is indeed a relaxing new year.
Well, I hope so. Yes.
Ben, thank you very much for your time. I'm Ross O'Brien with the Economist Corporate Network in Hong Kong. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.